The Demouscratic Republic of Crimsonia have returned to Mauxica, landing in Babybellon. They have destroyed Schwarzenberg's 3rd Brigade near Petantwood and have occupied the coastal cities. From New Zealand their eyes turn inland to Confluence and Asadero. One swift blow and this rebellion will be utterly destroyed. The Free Mauxicans have gathered their strength and appointed a commander-in-chief. Zaporta leads the combined brigades. He has decided to advance into New Zealand and deliver the knockout blow. But not all Free Mauxica is here. The 1st Brigade, under General Lavar with the elite 1st Corps Regiment, is in Tuttlesburg, restoring control, and 2nd Brigade, under General Malstruden, has marched all the way from the deserts in the northwest, past Asadero, and on to Glorth. Their intention is to break the Crimsonian supply lines. But most of Free Mauxica is here. They outnumber the Crimsonians in infantry, artillery, and cavalry, but not in quality. The long war with the Gluppian loyalists has cost the Mauxicans dearly in blood, and many regiments have simply been filled with raw recruits. The Crimsonians are veterans of the wars in Mausropa, and quality has a quantity all of its own. Zaporta arrays his troops along the Strahlenbach, a busy stream that crosses the main road between New Zealand and Confluence. He commands 5th Brigade, established in and around the Finkelmos Farm. The newly created 7th Brigade, under the recently promoted Milvan, holds the centre. The cavalry is grouped under General Van Andrews in the 4th Brigade and holds the western flank. The Guards Brigade has marched from Asadero for the first time this war. Former President Bosworth has asked the Congress to give him the formation. It was his decision to double the size of the regiments by filling them with recruits, over the objection of the colonels that lead them. The 2 Guards regiments are now of questionable quality. They are grouped with 2 newly raised regiments that have seen no combat. The Guards are held in reserve, behind Coop's Rise. Battle begins about 11 AM, with the Crimsonians opening fire from long range. Their gun crews are superior, but neither side does much damage. The exchange lasts for about an hour, with both waiting for the other to attack. At midday, a courier reaches General Sequoia, the senior Crimsonian officer. News has arrived that the Mauxican 2nd Brigade is marching on Glorth. The Crimsonian defences are insufficient to hold out. The army supply lines back to Babybellon are in danger. The enemy must be crushed here and now. Time is on Mauxica's side. Sequoia's orders are clear. Attack. Destroy the enemy now. Bertia and Bruxelles move their brigades forward to engage 5th Brigade around the Finkelmos Farm. Sequoia's own brigade demonstrates on the flank to hold the attention of the Mauxican cavalry and guards. The battle moves into 2 halves, around the Finkelmos Farm and Harrison's Ford, and on the open ground near Coop's Rise. Near Coop's Rise, the Crimsonian artillery has some effect on the Mauxican cavalry, who begin to take significant casualties and then fall back. Bosworth orders the guards out of their hidden position to form a double line on the flank. Undeterred by the opposing numbers, Sequoia orders his units to splash across the creek and prepare to attack. The 77th Expeditionary Guard, supported by the artillery, decide to make a bayonet assault on the guns positioned atop Coop's Rise. About 1 PM they push through the Mauxican canister fire, drive off 2 batteries, and cause an infantry unit to flee. General Van Andrews sees the Crimsonians achieve the summit and orders his cavalry to charge. He will lead the 1st Mounted Derby to recover the hill. The remaining artillery does sterling work, and the Crimsonians have taken heavy casualties and are shaken by the time the cavalry arrive. The elite infantry almost hold their line, but then break and rush down the hill, pursued by the cavalry. When the dust settles, the 77th Expeditionary are destroyed, but the Mauxican cavalry are exhausted, disordered, and in front of the Crimsonian guns. Somewhere amidst the melee and pursuit, General Van Andrews has been killed. The 4th Brigade has no commander. Sequoia directs fire from his artillery and calls on cavalry support from the centre, but they're not needed. The well-directed cannons tear the Mauxican cavalry to shreds. They break and retreat from the field. But now the Guards Brigade of infantry is advancing. The Crimsonians have 2 regiments remaining, which do good work, delivering steady volleys and holding their position. The 2 Guards regiments exchange volleys but quickly become disordered, shaken, and fall back. Bosworth brings up his other regiments, untested, and they stand and deliver fire on the Crimsonians. The Crimsonian 17th Mozzarella Regiment takes 50% casualties, but refuses to break, eventually pushing back the 15th Corps. the wild mice. But the 45th Agua Frescan cannot stand against the 99th Corps, the Crimson Wolves. They take heavy casualties and are pushed back across the stream. Sequoia orders his cavalry, the 12th Cuirassiers, to charge, which they do gallantly. The Crimson Wolves do not falter but hold their ground, and the Cuirassiers are cut down without doing significant damage. Sequoia's brigade is in trouble. He has one infantry unit in good order, and they are at half strength, and his artillery is still delivering heavy and effective fire. At about 3 p.m. he begins to consider ordering a general retreat. On the other flank, Berthier and Bruzel's brigades cross the Strahlenbach at about midday, and immediately everything goes wrong. 2 of the veteran regiments fall into disorder crossing the stream, while the elite 31st Kroganian Regiment open fire but somehow shoot over the enemy's heads. The Mauxicans open fire with devastating volleys and grapeshot from the guns. The Crimsonian units take horrendous casualties, become shaken, fall back, reform, and march forward again. The 31st Kroganian take the best part of an hour to drive off the 3rd Corps and a battery, and are then shattered by the 2nd Corps behind the fence line, and retreat in disorder. General Berthier thinks that all is lost and is about to order his brigade to fall back, but the 21st Frieslanians move forward on their own initiative and engage the 2nd Corps and Johann's Chosen. The fire is vicious, but eventually the Mauxicans are driven off in disorder. The Mauxican guns are out of grapeshot and reduced to firing solid shot at very close range. Zaporta calls on 7th Brigade to move up in support, and Milven is there in an instant. The Crimsonians have taken terrible casualties, but bring forward their last reserves. The whole line is engaged. On top of Coop's Rise, the President's son, Captain F. Tuttle, is now in command of what remains of 4th Brigade Cavalry. It is about 2 p.m, and Tuttle can see 2 viable targets. Crimsonian cavalry are moving forward in the centre, threatening the flank of the Guards Brigade, and the cavalry of Berthier's brigade has gone round the flank and is threatening the rear of the Mauxican line. His unit, Raoul's Rat Riders, is about 3/4 strength, having taken losses from an earlier artillery bombardment. He can only charge in one direction, and he decides to move to his left and drive away the cavalry threatening the army's rear. The Crimsonians see them coming and countercharge. The 2 units meet at full pelt behind the Mauxican centre, and for a moment it looks as though the green Mauxican cavalry are to be outdone by the Crimsonian veterans, but only for a moment. Captain Tuttle bellows encouragement, and the Mauxican numbers begin to tell. The Crimsonians are cut down and destroyed. Tuttle has saved the army. Of course, the Crimsonians don't see it that way. With Raoul's Rat Riders out of the centre, the cavalry detachment of Bruxelles' brigade makes a rapid advance across the stream, up Coop's Rise, and breaks the South Edamer revolutionaries and threatens the rear and flank of the Guards Brigade. And around the Finkelmos Farm and Harrison's Ford, it is the Crimsonians who have the numbers now, as a series of devastating volleys rip sections from the Mauxican line. The raw recruits cannot stand for long, and the line begins to fall apart. Zaporta and Milven meet briefly behind the lines. Hot work, General Zaporta. Can your brigade hold much longer? General Milven, I have no brigade. They are all dead in the fields. Then let us join them. The 2 shake paws and separate to join different regiments in a last-ditch attempt to hold. Milven is almost immediately shot and wounded, and the cheesemongers break and run. Zaporta does his best to rally the 5th Bayonets, but the Crimsonians fire a terrifying volley, and the soldiers break and run. At about 3 p.m, General Bosworth can see the Crimsonians opposite him pulling back across the Strahlenbach, and issues orders for his units to redress their ranks and follow. When an aide-de-camp points to the top of Coop's Rise, General, look, the guns. Bosworth turns to look and sees Crimsonian infantry manhandling the captured Mauxican guns to face down the rise and into his ranks. Well, sod it all, he says. I thought we'd won.